Good evening. My name is Patty Frazier, and I am the New York State PTA Treasurer. Joining me tonight to host this session is Dana Welch, our Membership and Insurance Manager for New York State PTA. And we are so pleased to welcome Jamie Fagan, President of AIM Insurance. She leads the daily operations of AIM and is always seeking new ways to better serve those they insure. As evidence of this, she has worked closely with us to design tonight's presentation so that together we can present the best information to you, our local leaders. AIM has been an incredible partner to New York State PTA and our units. In fact, they participate in our Strategic Alliance Partner Program at the presidential level. Some of you may have also had the opportunity to meet founder and CEO Elgin Allen, who has joined us at some of our recent New York State PTA conventions. Elgin, Jamie, and the team at AIM are more than partners. They truly believe in the mission of PTA, and they move beyond insurance for us to assurance that we as PTA leaders have everything we need in place to protect us so we can really focus on the work of our local PTAs. As we move through the presentation, please put any questions you have in the chat. As you can tell, we are recording this session, so we're going to have the recording so that people can view it later or use it as tools throughout the state when working with other units. And then we'll address all of the questions at the end that you might have. And then before we turn it over to Jamie, President Helen, are you on with us? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just pass it on now over to you, Jamie. Thank you again for joining us.
Sure. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Patty. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me well first. Hear me well? Okay, good. Thank you guys for joining. The purpose of this is to really just talk about what the New York State PTA package is, what insurance you have available to you, talk a little bit about how to renew, just remind everybody, especially if anybody's new, the renewal process that's coming up for the 7/1 renewal. So with that, I will get started on talking about the New York PTA insurance package. All right, so the package includes general liability, which is basically your event coverage. And we'll go a little bit more into detail about what each one of these things covers. So general liability, your commercial crime or fidelity bond, we sometimes call it, and your directors and officers coverage. We see that our two most frequent claims are general liability and commercial crime. So crime are most frequent claims. They are not the most high dollar. We usually see it's, a few $1,000s at a time. General liability, because of the medical claims, falls, arms, broken arms, things like that. We see that those are the most high dollar, but those two coverages are the most frequently needed coverages. And then the directors and officers, which is, we can't even bear to put that third. It's just it's right in there with the top two because this protects your officers. I'll talk. Oh, you know what? Were you able to see all three of those? Okay, I'm going to keep going. All right, so talking about general liability and what general liability covers. So it protects you against lawsuits resulting from bodily injury and property damage. So this is liability. So if someone else, a third party, is hurt at your event, or you damage someone else's property. So let's say you're, some balls or something, fly out of your event and hit a windshield of a parked car that's right by your event. Property damage is covered to a third party, not to your own property. It includes medical payments. We talk a lot about this because medical payments is just quick access without a lawsuit. It could be, someone falls and breaks their arm and you just quickly make a claim. Our claim form is very easy, and they put an adjuster on it and start to pay out on that claim pretty much, it's very quick. So we do this to deter lawsuits. If we find that if claimants can get quick response to a claim, for an injury or whatever it is, it will deter a lawsuit. So this is a great coverage to have. And it's included standard on the general liability. New as of last year, I believe, now hired and non-owned auto liability is included under your general liability. So I'm assuming there's probably going to be some questions about this because it's new. But basically, this is intended to cover liability, so damage that is caused by your chartering a bus or hiring, maybe renting a car, using it within the scope of PTA business, or non-owned. And non-owned means vehicles that the PTA does not own. But what is covered under this is a car that is not owned by the PTA, owned by one of the members. The board members could be just the PTA member, the volunteer, and driven in the scope of PTA business. So those two categories of auto liability are really nice to have. We still encourage you guys to be very careful about transportation with your events, but should something happen in one of these categories where you've hired a charter bus or something, limo, something of that sort, or you have a member driving their own vehicle in the scope of PTA business, you have liability coverage. So that is excellent. And I'm happy to answer more questions about that later if any come up. General liability covers your members, your volunteers, and your employees. It's very all-encompassing. And the coverage is $2 million per occurrence with 0 deductible. So there is no harm in making a general liability claim. If you think you have something that could be a claim, we welcome you to call us. One of the things I probably should have mentioned in the beginning is that we've been doing this for 30 years. We started our first PTA relationship in Texas in 1989. And this is really all we do. So parent-teacher groups and educational nonprofits, and then the majority of our business is PTA. So we like to remind people that we are very accessible. We don't have a phone tree. You guys can call us 5 times a day if you want to ask the most complicated question to the most basic question of just, hey, can we do this bounce house if, something, please, that's what we're here for. We want to help, and we hear it a lot. So we feel pretty well experienced in the things that you guys face as a PTA. So that is the general liability. We like to talk about the playlist of events. This is a page that is included in the insurance guide. And I believe the insurance guide is on the New York PTA website, and maybe Dana or Patty can give us details about if it's available anywhere else, but it's an excellent resource. It's probably about 27 or 30 pages, but within it, it has this playlist of events, which is, it basically tells you green, you're good to go, it's covered under your policy. Red, it's not covered under your policy, don't do it. Or yellow, and typically what yellow means is it's high risk. So you want to be careful. So things like bounce houses, roller skating parties, dunk tanks, those are all covered by your policy, but we want you to be really careful and maybe even consider getting a waiver for those specific events. So again, in the insurance guide, you'll find this playlist of events along with best practices, a little bit of summaries on the different types of coverage and what they cover, claims forms, things like that. So we encourage you guys to look at that. All right, so the next type of coverage we'll talk about is the bond coverage. So the bond coverage protects your PTA's money against embezzlement, robbery, theft. It's protected for anyone in your PTA who handles it. So it's not just your treasurer, not just your president. If you have a carnival and you entrust a volunteer, I'm sure you would have some sort of process. It wouldn't just be any volunteer, but entrusted them to take the money after the fundraiser and go deposit in the bank, the bond coverage would protect you. So it's excellent. It protects against, we see a lot of these scamming type emails where someone sends an email posing to be the president, asks you to transfer money or maybe purchase gift cards, and then you give them the gift card numbers, and now the money's gone because they were, it was a kind of a phishing scam. So all covered under the crime policy. And the standard limit that is covered in the New York package is $50,000. We recommend that you have the limit that is equal to or greater than the revenue that you have annually. So In most cases, we find that $50,000 is a great limit. I wanted to real quickly note, under the bond coverage, there are 2 requirements, and I think it seems like everybody's pretty well doing this, but I just want to bring it up again. 2 requirements are that you do an audit at the end of the year and that you're signing off on monthly bank statements. At the time of an incident, the adjuster will go in and ask for proof that these 2 things were done. If there's no proof that these items were done, the bond coverage will not respond. So it's really important that you are checking your monthly checking your monthly bank statements and having someone who is not a check signer sign off, and doing an annual audit at the end of the year. All right, so the next coverage, we will talk about directors and officers liability. So I will say that we have less directors and officers claims. However, it's really important to have, because you want to protect your directors and officers. You want people to volunteer, and it doesn't just cover directors and officers. It's really anybody who you have tasked with making decisions on behalf of your organization. So it could be a committee chair, it could be, another committee that has organized. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a director. So just like to note that. What does the directors and officers liability cover? So typically the claims that we see are decisions that a director makes on behalf of the PTA that are very well-intentioned decisions. And one of the examples that we like to use is that a PTA has sorry, I'm seeing a couple comments about people being able to hear. I want to make sure everyone can hear, but there was a PTA who had kind of an unruly board member of the PTA, and they knew that this person would show up to the PTA meetings and tend to get a little, out of control. So they had the campus police attend that PTA meeting, and sure enough, the member got a little out of control. And so the PTA asked that they please remove this person so that they wouldn't be, of any harm to any other PTA members. And that person sued the PTA for a violation of their civil rights. So perfect example of them doing the exact right thing. They protected their members. They knew that was probably going to happen, and they took all the precautions to make sure that nobody got hurt. And so anyway, they ended up having to defend this violation of civil rights. So right or wrong, it cost money, and we had to go in and defend that claim. So perfect example. And that's 9 times out of 10 what we see is that it's somebody that makes what we would all consider to be a pretty good decision on behalf of the organization, and someone takes an issue with it. But some of the things that we like to note are misleading statements, negligent acts, not following your bylaws, misrepresentation, any of those types of things. The directors and officers liability does not cover, willful intent, criminal acts, things like that. And this policy as well is a $0 deductible, and it has a $1 million per PTA limit. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about optional coverage upgrades. There are 2 optional coverage upgrades under the general liability. So the first one, is extended medical payments. So we talked about the extended medical, the $5,000 that's standard, that is easily accessed to deter a lawsuit. So you have an event, somebody has an injury, and it's just real quick response for medical payments. And that also includes medical payments for your own volunteers and members. So it's not just third party, it could be anybody on your board, volunteers and members. So again, if you tend to have higher risk activities, like maybe you do bounce houses quite a bit, rock climbing walls, inflatable obstacle courses, it's something that you can consider because we do see higher dollar medical payments. So again, we're always happy to help advise you if you think you might need a higher limit. The other coverage is media liability, and this has really taken off in the last probably 5 years, but gotten even more popular and needed in the last couple of years with COVID. So this coverage, and actually I have a slide on this. I'm going to go. So social media liability. So lawsuits resulting from social media coverage. So what are you protected from? Posting photographs without getting a release, using trademarks and logos without permission. So sometimes we have PTAs that are having an event where they're catering Chick-fil-A and they use Chick-fil-A's logo without their permission. Probably a company like Chick-fil-A, I don't know, they probably just asked you to take it down, but we have had other companies that have taken issue with it and been a little bit more aggressive about it. So misrepresentation of information. So you put something on your website that's incorrect and somebody takes an issue and maybe there's some loss based on the fact that you put incorrect information, or simply making confidential information public. So maybe you put names or locations or something of your membership without realizing it, and they take issue with that. Obviously, that's typically private information, but it could be accidental as well. One of the things that we see pretty frequently, well, I wouldn't say frequently, but we are seeing more of, is that there's algorithms on the internet that pick up if you're using someone's photo and they look to see if you have permission. So we had a PTA that had used a picture of a bird and they put it on their website and the algorithm picked up that they were using it on their website, and they reached out and sent them a bill. It was a fine, like a $300 fine for using that picture without their permission. So again, not a huge claim, but nice to have if you're doing stuff like this. The other most common is that you're posting a photograph without someone's permission and they get upset about it. So this is typically around, depending on the limit, around I think $80 to $120 annually if you choose to add media liability coverage. All right, so next we will talk about property. Those were the two coverages that are available as add-ons to the general liability. And property is a separate line of business. This is probably the most least purchased. I know some PTAs don't really have property, but most PTAs do at least take possession of fundraising merchandise or auction items, things like that. So those are items that would be covered under the property policy. So we recommend that, even if you don't own any property, just be, conscious of the fact that you may have $5,000 of fundraising merchandise in your possession. And if that all gets, destroyed somehow, you'll be liable for that money. So, and we just today we had a claim for a popcorn machine that it was, a more industrial popcorn machine that had fallen off its stand, and it was a $2,700 popcorn machine. And I know that that's probably not the standard popcorn machine, but again, it was full replacement cost for their new popcorn machine. So something to consider if you have any property or you have possession of fundraising merchandise or things like that for any period of time. And this one too is around $100 annually if you'd like to add it. All right, well, that was the breakdown of all the coverages. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about our online renewal process. So last year was the first year that we did an online renewal process. We weren't submitting manually, but going through the AIM portal. So the PTA president this year, it should be in about a week, right around May 1st, we'll be sending out an email with a link to renew in our portal. And again, around May 1st, that's a Monday. All right, online renewal process. So I'm saying you'll get an email to the president, and this is tied to your email address. So please don't forward it because the next person won't have their email address registered to our system. If you have changed email addresses, you will need to reset your password. We will have updated your email address. If you don't know if you have a new email address, that's okay. You can try to reset and we can work with you to reset this anyway. But let me pull up the page. Okay. So the renewal email, you'll click the link and it will take you to our landing page. You will see a little login. It's circled in red right there. If you click login, it will take you to a My Policy page where you will click Forgot Password, or you can enter the credentials that you used last year and you don't have to reset your password. After that, if you reset your password, it will send you a change your temporary password. Pretty self-explanatory as reset passwords go. After you reset it, you will go to Renew Policy. You'll log in, you'll see this page that says My Policy with these links. You'll click Renew Policy. It will take you to this list of coverages. You will see that all of the New York standard policies will be grayed out and already selected, so you cannot deselect those. But at this point, you can add any coverages that you wish to add additionally if you'd like to. And then you click Purchase Coverage at the bottom. After that, it will take you to a page where you can update contact information if necessary. And then you select your payment type. So you can either say that you want to mail a check, so you just submit the renewal process and then we just wait for your payment through the mail, or you can do payment online with an EFT or credit card. It will give you the breakdown of coverages as you see here, and then you click Submit. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty, it advances pretty easily, but if anybody has any issues with that, again, always feel free to call us. We're happy to help with that process. We know last year was the first year that you did it, but we hope it's really easy this year. I want to remind you that certificates of insurance, they will be mailed to the 22-23 unit president, and that will be at the end of June for anybody who has renewed 6/15 or before. And then for anybody who renews after the renewal date, which is 7/1, we'll be sending certificates out after about 7/15. You can always contact us and we will send you a certificate if you didn't get one, or if you need one right away. That is not a problem. This is just the standard times that we send them out. So we just ask that you pass that certificate along to the 2023-24 president, and we should be good to go. That is pretty much it. So just again, like to remind you guys that we are very accessible. You can contact us anytime to ask questions about coverage, claims, renewal, any of it. And we're really proud to partner with you guys and be here and be a great resource. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to open the floor now for questions. We've had a couple of questions that have come through. We just want to remind everybody that yes, we are recording, and usually we have the recording available within 24 hours. So it will be posted on the New York State PTA website and under our, this is not typically a webinar, but we'll list it as one of our webinars. But we did have some questions come in, so if it's okay with you, we'll go ahead and get started. I kind of grouped them together. So the first question that I'd like to start with is about the play, pause, and stop list. So a couple things. One, we list on there the words grad night. And a lot of what our units do is a post-prom party. Is that a similar event? Is that what grad night refers to?
Is that a question for me?
Yes, Jamie, that's a question for you. if that's, because we don't include post-prom as, again, that's just that party after that event. The parents sometimes will get together and sponsor some, gathering for the kids. Is that different? I don't know, than grad night?
No, I wouldn't really categorize it differently. I mean, ultimately, we're just looking to see that this is your PTA's event. So if it's a school event and, I would just be asking, if it's grad night, is it a school event or is the PTA running it?
Okay, and then on the grad night is in yellow. So that's a pause. So I'm a PTA leader and I'm getting ready to plan out our year, and we're deciding to have this grad night, end of the year celebration for the highest grade level. Maybe it's 8th grade or post-prom. So it's yellow. So my first step would be putting together the ideas of what we want to do. And then my second step is to call AIM. Is that correct? And just kind of run the activities we want to do by you for your assessment.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the reasons why it's on the, caution, slow down list is because grad night can have a lot of events that tend to be more high risk. So yes, we definitely recommend that you call us and let us know what you're doing, and we'll just make sure that all the activities are covered.
And when we call AIM, you're telling us we would like to call our 800, the 800 number, and speak to whoever is there to offer us customer assistance, or does New York State have a certain person that we should ask for?
Nope, the entire team. You can call anybody. Anybody who picks up will be able to help you. If you find somebody that you like and you want to always call them, you're welcome to do that too.
Okay, great. And then I want to also, somebody wanted to know about dodgeball. They didn't see it on the list. But I personally would say dodgeball is probably a yellow and should call first just to explain what you're doing. But what is your thought on that?
There's no exclusions in the policy for dodgeball. So, I would just, if you have a mix of aged kids, you want to make sure the little, younger kids aren't getting hurt. I mean, I don't know if it would usually be all the same grade or you would mix grades, but, obviously you're slamming balls at people. So that is why it's on the yellow list, because you just want to be careful. And we recommend a waiver if, you can manage it, but there are no exclusions in the policy, and your coverage is not dependent on a waiver.
Okay. And so then if we could just move on to the waiver, and can you talk a little bit about that? Just to let people know that we do have the sample waiver in the resource guide.
Yes. As Patty said, in the insurance guide, there are several samples. There's a sample waiver for participants. There's like a sample gifting letter. If you're going to, we recommend that if you're, instead of paying for something, you gift it to the school. That way it kind of takes liability off. But yes, in the insurance guide are sample waivers that you can just pull and use anytime. And so
well, we know that the waiver is really just a way for, parents, guardians, to just be mindful that we're doing the best we can to protect their children, and we're asking them to, kind of sign that waiver to go along with it, that, that we're all doing our best to protect the children, but it's not totally a deterrent, right?
Yeah, I mean, we do it because it is a deterrent, but 9 times out of 10, it's not going to stand up in court. So it's not rock solid. You can still be sued even if you have a waiver. So don't, get a waiver and think that just, you can just do whatever after that point. We do it because it's a deterrent. People, typically think, well, I signed a waiver, so if something happens, they don't feel as quick to file suit. But yeah.
So again, yes, so we really want people to be as cautious as possible. And I'm going to ask Dana now. So in addition to the play, pause, and stop list, we have a second list that we offer in the insurance guide that we really want people to know. So she's going to go ahead and share her screen. So I think I would need you to stop sharing. Great. So we're going to share the screen now. Just as a reminder, there are some very specific exclusions that we have as well. And some of them, I feel like some are common sense, but I think it's important that we want people to know that while you're looking at the very detailed play, pause, and stop list, that to follow on to the next page, just to double check if you think there's any bit of risk in what you're doing. Obviously, typically asbestos exposure is, not something that we normally think about, but there are some other items on this list that we certainly want people to be mindful of. One of the things, obviously, is scouting is something that we have been working for many years to make sure that our PTA units are not taking any responsibility for any type of scouting that's happening in your building or in your community. And then, of course, you'll see weapons on there too. One of the more popular, team building kind of fun events is the hatchet throwing. So we just want to make sure that everyone knows that that is, considered a weapon. And so that would also be excluded from our policy. So unfortunately, that is something that we do discourage setting up for. And then finally, worker compensation claims. We have a lot of units that might work with after school programs, and they're having people come in to run some of their activities. We want to just make sure that everyone knows that if there is a worker compensation claim for somebody that you are paying as an independent contractor, that that will not go through AIM. You are responsible for getting that workers' compensation coverage on your own. So those are some certain things that have been coming up that we wanted to just reiterate. Again, though, while we're saying this now, and I know this is a recording, you can come back and watch and you can refer to this, always do not hesitate to dial that 800 number to call AIM. They will give you absolutely the best information. So a few more questions that have come up. I would like to just ask this question about, and this is a new one for me. It's about the transportation policy. We have a unit that is offering a rideshare program so that to help families get to their PTA meeting. So is that something that would be covered under the hired and non-owned auto liability coverage that we're offering if something happened to the driver of that rideshare program?
That is an excellent question. And we have to be careful because it gets very gray. And I get back to, at the time of claim, we have to determine that it's truly a PTA event. So, carpooling, just general carpooling would not be something that would be covered if, a group of parents organized to do carpooling. So you would just have to make sure that whatever ride share situation you have was a PTA event. So I would really recommend that you call us just to make sure that the way that you're operating it would be a PTA event. If it's, I heard you say, it's just to get people to PTA events. So if it's organized specifically around that event and it checks all the boxes, then yes, it would be covered under the hired and non-owned auto, assuming that the drivers of those vehicles were driving their own vehicles and it was scope of PTA business. So yeah, again, assuming everything falls into place, and I encourage you to call us, but yes, it would be covered under hired and non-owned.
Great, thank you. Let's see. So we've had a lot of questions about the reconciliation and the audit. So one, I'm going to do the easy one first, which is the audit. So an annual audit is required. Even before we started working with AIM and using AIM for our fidelity bond, our crime coverage, our loss of funds coverage, we have always required an audit. That is actually part of 501c3 law, that we have to, again, account for all of our funds. We're responsible to the IRS. We don't have to show them our audit, but they want us to be doing that so we can prove that we are using the funds for mission focused work as well. So the audit has always been required as part of your bylaws. And so it details in there, the idea of you're having a committee or using an outside auditor. We have extensive instructions on how to conduct your audit at the end of the fiscal year in the resource guide, as well as sample forms for you to use. So that is required, again, outside of AIM, but now that we are working with AIM, we want the presidents to know that when you sign off on the policy, you are signing off stating that you will be doing this. So in order to keep that coverage in effect. Now, a bit about the reconciliation. So the reconciliation, we also expect those to be done on a monthly basis. So again, they don't have to be done at a general membership meeting. They could be done at a board meeting or an executive committee meeting, again, by two non-signers of the account. What we're looking for there is we are looking for a review of the bank statement to make sure that all of the funds that were supposed to go into the bank did make it into the bank, and any expenses that were taken from the bank were legitimate business of PTA expenses. And so the way that you do that is you compare it to your monthly treasurer's report of what the activity is. So you want to make sure that those two match up. So it's not just simply saying, oh, we started with $1,000, we deposited $500, and we spent $400, so now we have $1,100 and everything looks great. It really is a comparison of your ledger to make sure that the PTA business that took place is accounted for in your bank statement. So you are, yes, we would like the two people that do that to actually sign the bank statement to say that they reviewed it. And then it also should be reported as part of whatever meeting you're at and put into the minutes. And if you don't have a general membership meeting, the treasurer can report, last month it was done by so-and-so and so-and-so, and this month it's done by, Sue and Joe or whoever. So that's how that process works. What's important a suggestion that we've been making for the last several years is identifying several people that can do that for you and actually having them serve as your audit committee at the end of the year, so that they're familiar with all the activity that's been going on through the year, and then they can easily step in to take over to do the audit, because the reconciliation is almost like a mini audit, and so monthly. And so if you do that and keep up with it, it will make the end of the year audit go very smoothly. Usually the end of the year audit, the glitches is like some minor thing that might have happened back in October, and nobody remembers it, and they're struggling with the audit because the books aren't balancing, and then they remember, oh yes, there was that thing that happened in October and we had to void a check and rewrite it because it got lost or whatever. So if you're doing your reconciliation monthly, it really will help you with your audit process later on. So that is about that. The slides, again, we have had some questions about that. Everybody will be able to have access to them. There's a question on here, how do you change the email address? And I'm assuming that was for the process of the renewal payment.
Yeah, so I don't know, Patty, if you guys have a preference on them. I know that you guys can come direct to us to change it. We were recently given a list of all of the updates. So the information that you guys have at the state level, and it's all been updated. So if something changed between the last year and then the last 60 days, we might already have the update. If you think that we still don't have the right email after May 1st and you don't get the email, you can contact us directly and just have us change it. We will have to change it in our system in order for you to do the reset password. But if you have updated that information with the state,
on Member Hub, right? On our Member Hub, yeah. So if your email address is good on Member Hub, then that is what we're providing to AIM. But again, you can reach out also to the New York State PTA office just to confirm that, to ask for Dana, or you can send us an email. You can either send that to Dana or myself, and we'll put our email addresses in the chat if you just want to inquire to make sure that we have the right email for you to get your renewal information. Let's see. Okay, let's see. We just, again, some of the optional coverages also are worth calling. You can email myself. You can work with your region director. If you have some questions about adding the additional coverages, you can reach out to AIM. Jamie, do you know off the top of your head, there's a question of how much the media liability per year is the extra?
Yeah, I think it's around 80 to 120,000 depending on the limit. And I think the limits are 25, 50, 75, and 100.
So say that again, it's about $80 to $120 to get the various levels.
To add it, yeah.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so we have also a question, the final question that we have in the chat, and the floor will be open then, is just related to alcohol. So if we're having an adult-only event, we have some guidance in the insurance guide about alcohol being present at the event, but I want to just remind everybody that we have a separate policy that's New York State PTA alcohol policy. So while insurance may cover something, New York State PTA, our policy will not allow it, partly because of our 501c3 status. So the question was, again, so when we're at an event that has alcohol present, your recommendation from the AIM perspective about the alcohol is that what?
Well, the policy covers exposure in relation to alcohol. It has to be your event. But what we always say is, first of all, you want to make sure that your district okays it, and contact your alcoholic beverage commission, because they're going to have rules about who it's served by, if you have to have a licensed person, what you can do. So every state's different. So we first start there. But as far as the policy goes, there is coverage for alcohol liability. Again, the incident has to be within the PTA event. So.
Thank you for that. Sorry, the chat was going a little bit busy there for a second. So just, I'm just going to just jump back to the reconciliation. This reconciliation requires actual physical eyes doing this. So even if you're using, as the question came up about QuickBooks, we really need somebody who has the comparison of both, that remembers or knows what was going on in the PTA that past month of activity. So again, if something doesn't get put on QuickBooks, entered onto QuickBooks, a deposit or something like that, and it maybe went on the bank statement, or it didn't go on the bank statement either, or it went into QuickBooks but not on the bank. We need somebody who can really work on both of those to make sure that everything is happening the way it is. I will tell you, to be honest, what we're finding, and I'm sure Jamie, I think you even actually said this earlier, what typically is happening in some of our situations is that an event happens, money is collected both in cash and in checks. The checks make it to the bank and the cash doesn't. And so even though a deposit is there, it might not be the right deposit. So we really do need people actually reviewing them. And that's just what the auditors, or I'm sorry, that the underwriters are requiring to be able to honor any claims. And really, it's one of those things that once you start doing it, it goes very quickly, right? So again, that's why I really encourage you to try to find, responsible people that are willing to do this, that, you can point out to them, and celebrate the work they're doing every month as another way of helping PTA. And again, they would make great members of your audit committee. Okay, I am going to just open up the floor now for some questions. So if you just want to do the hand raise, I hope everyone.
Patty, we have to use the chat because I blocked the meeting. So
okay,
we're have please to continue questions in that chat.
Okay, let me get back to the chat. Okay, so if you're having issues with your current president, again, that's a reach out. So reach out to your region director, reach out to myself, reach out to the PTA office. We will guide you through making sure that we get the paperwork to the right person. If you have co-presidents, the information is only going to go out to the first president listed on Member Hub. We are not sending it to both. The people that do your reconciliations do not need to be board members. Actually, they can be any member of your PTA. That's all we're asking, is that they are an invested member of your PTA. And again, non-signers on the account. Okay, I'm scrolling back through the questions. I want to make sure that I didn't miss any, but please keep adding them in. Thank you, you're welcome. So we are updating, and every year we update the insurance guide, which is part of the resource guide. So you'll be seeing, on July 1, we'll make sure that the new information is out there so that everybody can start out the fiscal year and the new PTA year with everything that they need.
Excuse me, Patty, there was one question earlier about is the coverage by unit? So
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
The coverage is by unit. So when we talked about the $2 million, every single unit has $2 million in general liability. Every single unit has $1 million in directors and officers, and $50,000 per incident on the crime coverage.
Okay, so this is a really great question. So if a unit has funds and they follow along with the process that we have for the donation of funds to the school, and so say they want to donate a certain amount of money to be used towards field trips, and they donate that to the school district for the field trip, and then the school district organizes the field trip. Does that mean that the PTA no longer has any liability for anything that might happen because they've donated the funds?
Well, that's a good question. We can never say that you don't have any liability because anybody can sue for any reason, and they have, and they've won. So we never say that there's no liability. However, we absolutely recommend that that's the best way to do it to mitigate that liability, because it becomes very difficult if you pay for something directly, that there is a paper trail, and it is very easy for someone to say that you are liable because you paid for it. If you donate the money to the school, it is very difficult for them to say that the PTA is liable. So that is what we recommend that you do, is that you gift the money. And we have like a sample gifting letter. I know I recently just heard of, I've heard that schools sometimes accept money and then don't spend it on the things that they're supposed to. But using a gifting letter is great. So again, that's in your insurance guide.
Okay, so this is bringing up a few questions here. Okay, so, but I already forgot what they were. So that's out. Oh, nope, I'll think of it. Okay, I'll think of it. It was, if we learn that there's, or we think after we do a reconciliation or an audit that there might be some funds missing, but we're not 100% sure, so we're going to dive into it more. When do we contact AIM just to kind of let you know that we might have something happening?
That is another awesome question. And we have seen where it goes on for a very long time with people trying to determine what's happening, or even they know something has happened and they're just trying to handle it with that person directly to see if they can get the money back. So we recommend that as soon as you think there might be something wrong, you go ahead and put us on notice. And that just what that means is that we send a notice to the carrier, just basically kind of date stamping the issue so that you have some time to work through it. And it could be that you get the money back from the person who took it, or you were mistaken about what was missing. But it is always better to go ahead and put us on notice, as we call it, just to kind of timestamp that so that you're not in a position where a year later we have to prove when you discovered it. So if you think there's an issue, go ahead and call us.
Okay, so and once we just recognize that we do have an issue, what is going to be our next step?
Submit a claim form. So that is also in the insurance guide. It's on our website as well. It's pretty easy to find under resources, and you can email it to us, you can call us, and somebody will direct you to the person who normally handles the claim intake. They can help you fill it out. It's only 2 pages. It's really simple. There's not a lot of insurance jargon on it. You're just talking about what happened and who was there, and we submit it to the carrier. And then usually within 3 days or less, they will contact your PTA, contact whoever the claimant might be, if there's a claimant, and start, going through the discovery around the claim.
And so for the loss of funds claim, so would the next step be then having to reach out to authorities?
Yes, actually, if you haven't already, you have to file a police report. So when you contact us and you say that it's a loss of funds claim, we'll ask you if you filed a police report. And so if you haven't, we'll ask you to go ahead and do so. So if you know there's a loss of funds and you want to go ahead and file the police report, that's great, because it will be necessary for the claim.
Okay. So if you find yourself in that situation, or if you're a council person and it's one of your units, whatever, your next call should also be to your region director, who will be able to help you also assist, will assist you in the process of what needs to get done. It can be very sensitive, and it can be a very, it's obviously a sense of betrayal, without a doubt. So really your region director will help you walk through that. Okay, so yes, each unit can decide their own additional coverage of what they might want to do, and I think it's explained pretty well on the form that you're going to be receiving from AIM to select those additional coverages, and I think we have a little bit about it in the insurance guide as well. So the sample gift letter will also be in the insurance guide. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the resource guides. It has various sections. So finance is in 2 sections. 5A is about finance and 5B is about insurance. So we encourage you to read both of those, but the insurance one is really extensive and gives you great information. But we're, again, your region director, myself, and Dana Welch, as well as AIM, we're all here to answer any questions that you might have regarding any of the information in there. So Camille has asked, when we access the account, does it give info on our current unit coverage? And I'm wondering, Camille, are you asking that? And you can unmute if I think, Kyle, can people unmute? I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if that's to see if you had, one of the extra coverages this year. Do you want to continue that? And so you report that back to us already, right?
Yeah, and when we send out the renewal, when you log into the online system, that screen that shows all the coverages, the grayed out, it will still be grayed out in the selections, what's required of the New York PTA package, but then it will also have any optional coverages that you had last year selected as well. So if they're pre-selected, you had them last year, you do have the option to take them off, but they will be pre-selected.
Great. Okay, so I just want to again address the alcohol question, and I don't know that this is necessarily from the insurance perspective, but one of the things that we want to talk about, we want to just make sure. I see the question. There's a question about parents bringing their own alcohol. I will say, I think Kyle will back me up, I believe almost every campus in New York State in public schools is an alcohol-free zone. So there is no reason for parents to be, or guardians or any adults to be bringing alcohol onto school grounds. If that happens, and that happens at one of your meetings, that somebody is bringing alcohol, and that's not something that we would go to AIM for, because that really is a violation of the school policy.
And
yes, most school
will help me with that.
Yeah, most public school districts in New York are alcohol and drug-free zones, as we call them. Some of our PTAs are chartered on non-public school property, so they are treated a little bit differently. But if you were a public school PTA, you were on an alcohol and drug-free zone. So, it likely would be a violation of a code of conduct issue that the school district and the PTA would deal with themselves.
Okay. If that did not answer the question that was put in the chat, please. So again, Kyle, can people unmute or not?
Somebody can try.
Okay.
I tried to readjust the settings. So if that person wants to unmute.
Yes, you can unmute.
Okay, great.
Okay, so again, if you don't know the hand raising, if you aren't able to do that, because we have that locked, you can just ask your question if you can unmute. Do we have any questions that we didn't get in the chat box, or do you need clarification on the alcohol? And I think that's really almost a separate conversation.
I just want to add to the alcohol conversation that even if you are having an event off campus or on a campus that isn't a public school that has the alcohol and free drug zone, you really don't want to take on liability for parents bringing alcohol, because then if they're giving it to other people, you don't really have any oversight. You don't know what's in there. You don't know how strong it is. Like there could be liability that you have no real control over. So I would say, don't allow parents to bring alcohol at all. If you do alcohol at one of your events, all the oversight needs to be done by the PTA, because again, you need certain people serving it. You need to know how much people have had, there needs to be some process in place there.
And I'll add, Jamie, in New York State, our alcohol serving is controlled by our New York State Alcohol Beverage Control Law, and we have an entire department that does that. So if you are at a venue, they have a liquor license or an alcohol, wine, and beer license. So they have very strict rules. So no alcohol can ever really be brought into any type of restaurant or venue, etc., unless it is officially permitted by that restaurant. Some of our restaurants in New York are kind of bring your own restaurants. They're very few and far between. Most of our restaurants have some type of liquor license. So no outside alcohol should be brought into any of these places.
And to further our policy, we just want to remind everybody that when you are having events that involve alcohol, that the cost for admission for those events can only cover the cost of the venue and the food. We cannot accept any money or ask for any money to cover the cost of alcohol. That has to come out of a person's own pocket. So that's also, again, that's 501c3 law for us and New York State PTA policy, that we do not use PTA funds in any way to pay for alcohol. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Let's see, let me scroll. When will the email renewals be sent? We're shooting for May 1st, just about. That would be Monday, so we're going for that. And we will continually work with units so that we make sure everybody has what they need in place. Everybody's current policy expires on June 30th, and so we want everybody to be up and ready to go on July 1st with no lapse of coverage.
Hi, Patty. This is Diana Lynn. I have just a quick question about the renewals. How do they get paid? I saw the online. Do we get billed so that we could send in a check, or is that like only an online payment?
Do you want to take the team?
Sure. There will be a PDF that you could do this manually if you like, just as an FYI. But when you go to the online system, you will select a payment type, and you can select, I want to mail a check, in which case you'll complete the renewal process, and then our system will just say that it's pending a mailed check, and then you can mail it in to us and we'll match it. Or you can select that you'd like to pay electronically, and then right there in the portal, you can enter your payment information and make your payment, and then you're done.
So the options for that are the ACH transfer, which is directly out of the bank account, the PTA bank account.
Okay.
So if you are going to do the ACH transfer, which, because AIM is our partner, that is acceptable. You just want to make sure that when the renewal comes through, the president and the treasurer work together to make sure that, this is something that, one, we're going to make a transfer because we have the money to do it. And, that two people have agreed to make the payment. I'm assuming it's on everybody's budget as a budget line. Insurance is an annual thing, so I don't think that that's an issue. So the payment, again, just make sure that we have some kind of paper trail or an email trail to say we've approved, renewing the AIM insurance.
Okay, perfect.
I was actually transfer, which is the
I was actually curious because I do have the insurance policy for this year, but I can't seem to find a check or something that shows that it's paid. So here I am, I'm worried that our insurance is not paid for.
Oh, well, you would have probably heard from us now, and you wouldn't have a certificate if you didn't pay.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
So,
okay.
Yeah. And so you can maybe just kind of scroll back through your statements.
Online statements.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Patty, can I just ask a question? It's Helen.
Sure. Well, the president, of course.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Can you just tell everybody about the difference between payments being made by units versus councils and what councils have to do?
That is a great question. So there's the councils are paid for, it's kind of subsidized by the state. So I believe, Dana, didn't we say that for councils, you just select mail a check? And I can't remember, I don't think our system gives you the option to recognize that it's $0 due. So I think you actually have to click mail a check in order to proceed. And
That's correct, Jamie.
Okay.
It does say if you're a council, you would select that option and the money would be covered by New York State PTA.
Okay, Jamie, I think we're open for a final question, but I think we have really covered quite a bit tonight, and I really want to thank you for your time tonight. We've kind of reached our hour. Again, I want to remind everybody, I know there's been questions. We have recorded and we will be sharing, and you will have access if you can't find it. Again, you can reach out. I'm going to put my email address in the chat box right now. It's around. You can always reach out to on our Facebook page, our PTA Leaders Facebook page, if you have questions. It's an easy place because we all see it, and it's easy for us to answer those questions there as well. And it's a great conversation. So your question is probably helping other people. It's a great way to do that. So again, Jamie, I want to thank you for your time tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining us to learn more about the insurance. Again, AIM has been a spectacular partner for us, and really as PTA leaders, we should really feel, comfortable in doing the work that we're doing, because we know that we already have taken care of this most important part of making sure that everything is safe and secure.
Well, thank you, Patty.
Oh, you are so welcome. So we look forward to seeing you sometime soon in person. But for now, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I think we are going to say goodnight all.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.